Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a new year here at the AROC Racing Leagues. It is a new year and a new era in terms of the cars we have on offer for this season's running. To start off the first half of 2022, we have the Alfa Romeo GTA Championship, an exciting set of cars here. Starting off here at Goodwood with the 1750 GTA classic old school racing car. Diving into the corner there, we're on board with looks to be John Baker we're on board with at the moment. Yes, I believe we are. A little bit of a disparity between the timing systems and what we have on in terms of inside the game at the moment, but we'll get that sorted in just a second as Colin Keith has joined the session there and gets very close to Barry Clayton's best time there of a 1:26.3, although I do believe it's John Cole. John Cole, a rookie new to this running this year, is currently leading leading the standings in qualifying here with a 1:26.1. Very nice lap there from him, but he is unfortunately not on the time system at the moment. We'll go back on board with John Baker now. But yes, a new set of cars starting off with this classic one then here. And what a great circuit to start off the driving in as well here at Goodwood. They match each other very well, and I have actually had a little bit of a chance to drive these cars around this circuit, and they are they're a challenge, shall we say. It's definitely a car that wants to go fast. However, getting it to go fast and getting it to go around a track in a decent enough time is the challenge. Drivers reporting not the most drivable thing in the world, as to be expected really of such an old car. But it will be one that keeps the drivers on the toes, and which should make for some excellent racing action coming up in just a few moments' time. Drivers are qualifying at the moment. It is Barry Clayton on pole. It looks like the timing system has sorted itself out. Can confirm that is who we have on pole at the moment. 1:25.7. He's looking fairly comfortable at the moment. Fairly clear of everyone else, it must be said. John Cole, again, a very nice job for his first fast lap of the season, his first fast lap here with us, and he was in second place for a little while. Colin Keith has just set his best so far, 1:24.6, absolutely flying ahead of everyone else right at the start of the qualifying session. A bit of a different livery for Colin for the 1750 GTA actually. I do like it actually, more of a kind of using orange as the primary colour in comparison to most of his liveries, which are kind of the black with the orange highlights. Looks very nice indeed. Looking good out there, Colin. Hopefully let's see some more exciting liveries for the next couple of cars. Look at the amount of body roll that those cars have through these long right-handers. You've got to watch out for corners like Ford Water and probably the Levant corner as well, the entry into the Levant corner where your car is carrying a lot of speed, you don't want to understeer. And yes, you see the suspension being tested to its absolute limits there, as we have, I believe that is Paul Millman in front of Colin there. Yes, it is. Once again, nearly getting the car up on three wheels. I did see at a couple of points, and in my own driving, the car getting up onto three wheels. And if you're not careful over the curbs, the car will soon basically eject itself into space, eject itself into the atmosphere. It's certainly a tricky one. Gaz Robrick was mentioning that he has actually found a way around the body roll, a way around some of the drivability issues, and that is to absolutely drop the car to the floor, slam it to the ground, ruin the underside of the car. The downside of that being you just have to avoid the curbs, but he believes that setup is actually quicker than trying to ride over any of the curbs here at Goodwood, as we are inside looks to be the footwell of someone's car. Looks like we're inside the footwell of Paul Millman's car. We're not anymore. Glad that is solved. That would have been not the most exciting camera angle in the world. Just see a little bit of fire extinguisher and nothing else pretty much. But we're on board here with Paul Millman as he looks to be exploring the track limit here. And once again, we're in the footwell. That is not ideal. And your feet aren't moving there, Paul. So you may be struggling for power down the straight. So I'd recommend using the throttle. Obviously not modelled in the 3D modeler, and we're on board with Colin Keith, who's just gone purple in Sector 3, absolutely flying. These cars look so dynamic through these bends. The left-right switchback heading through St Mary's there. The exit of St Mary's can catch a few drivers out. There's a bit of a dip on the exit down. If you're not careful in these rear-wheel drive cars, it will be facing the wrong direction, although that's more of an issue in the Giulia GTA M, which is coming up in a few weeks' time. That is a bit of a monster, it must be said. I had a bit of a drive around here in that car, which is going to be interesting to watch in the racing, but I also had to go around Spa, and that Giulia GTA M is pretty much up there with the GT3s in terms of pace. It is certainly one to watch. We see Colin absolutely hanging it around there. We saw the first bit of a three-wheel action, the car just jumping the front right wheel rather up into the air, and Colin very brave through the chicane at the final part of the lap here. We'll stay on board with him for another lap. I think he's got another fast lap in him. That was another purple Sector 3 actually, so it should be alright. He does improve actually and goes 1:24.5, improving on his best as we head through the Madrid corner and into Ford Water in just a second. Got a bit of a straight before then where he wants to rev that car out to about 7,500 RPM. Don't have an exact power figure for you, unfortunately. These cars obviously a little bit sporadic on their power output, shall we say. It's an old school Italian car, what you expect. But they sound good nonetheless. Excellent intake roar coming from these classic engines as Colin goes up onto two wheels, riding over the curbs, heading into St Mary's corner. But keeps it tidy nonetheless. Who else is on for a fast lap at the moment? It is John Cole, currently running in P4. He's got Barry Clayton for a little bit of a slipstream. A beautiful livery on John Cole's car there. That snakeskin effect that we've seen in use in a couple of other cars makes its return here with the GT8 1750 as well as he starts his lap, now heading through the Madrid corner and into Ford Water. There's a train of cars actually. It looks to me that is that Rob Whitney leading this train here. It is Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney doing a very nice job. Obviously this first full season for Rob Whitney now in the pro categories, and he will be looking to make headway there as he uses as much of the track as he does. Any more than that he would have been on the grass in these very lively cars there. As we see, who is that in the background? Is that John Cole? That is John Cole. 90 degrees basically perpendicular to the tarmac, able to somehow put it back onto four wheels without any major difficulties, but that could have gone a little bit wrong for John. Luckily able to salvage it there, but you'll have to have another attempt at this fastest lap because that will have shook him up a little bit, I can imagine. We've got just over 10 minutes in qualifying remaining now, and it's still Colin Knief on pole, about a second clear of everyone else. We have yet to see an appearance of Matt Daly. I was mentioning it in round one at Kyle Army over the Formula Alpha series. It is quite common for Matt Daly to not show up, and here he is now with just 10 minutes to go. He shows up in the qualifying session, obviously not able to do the full session, but he shows up and puts in a good performance anyway, so let's see what he can do with the remaining 10 minutes that he has. He should be able to get a few laps in there. It looks like Barry Clayton's had a bit of difficulties. He has had sustained some front wing damage, although there isn't much of a front wing to speak of actually, so a little bit of front bumper damage, or from bodywork damage I guess. There isn't really a bumper on these cars, shouldn't be too much of an issue. These cars I imagine are some fairly sturdy actually, as we can see. The Alfa 75 camera car making its return now. Obviously new this year is a separate camera car for myself, and I'm rather enjoying the Alfa 75. It's a nice looking car, and it's adds a little bit of variety to feel, so it's good to see, and it makes sure that I can actually tell when it is not me out on track there on the timing system. Guy Swarbrick posts his best lap of the session so far with I can't quite work out what it is at the moment, that is a 1:27.1, so the time's flying down for Guy Swarbrick. They're running the vintage tyre compound, everyone, when you're in the GTA 1750, so there's nothing in terms of race strategy or tyre strategy. It is just flat out pace, and obviously those vintage tyres having their own set of quirks when it comes to driving characteristics. As I believe that is, who was that? That is Mr. Will Harper, of course. I mentioned in round one at Kyle Army, Mr. Will Harper has had his driver designation change, his 3 letters that denote it is him on the timing system. He's had that changed away from his regular surname to a Mr. Will Harper, a very sophisticated approach to naming there, which means I'll have to get used to a new name, but that will come with time. I'm already starting to refer to him as only Mr. Will Harper from now, as we have Alan Matthews just put in a very nice lap there of a 1:25.4, going second fastest at the moment, 3/10 clear of P3. Barry Clayton hasn't really improved that lap since he made that previous attempt, which was a few minutes ago now, so he may be starting to think about that one last push towards the top of the order in qualifying here at Goodwood. What a brilliant pairing of car and track this is. What a way to start what should be an exciting championship, as we see Matt Daly now on his first fast lap. Obviously that was an out lap that had him in P16 a moment. We got a fairly full house this evening, so the 2.4 miles of Goodwood should have plenty of action on them, which I am looking forward to, as he is, yes, on for a decent lap at the moment. The set times haven't updated yet, but he's been able to get past some track there. Jack Hodson running P17 in qualifying at the moment. He's been able to get past Jack Hodson there, even on his fast lap. Let's see how that has affected his best lap. I can tell you sector 1 was what, 33.2 seconds, which if we compare that to Colin Knief's time was a 33.9 on his previous lap. So looking fairly pacey in sector 1 is Matt Daly, and who is that? That is Andrew Harvey. That probably explains why Mr. Will Harper has had his names changed. That is Andrew Harvey running the very, very nice blue and orange GTA 1750 there. I don't know if I can call that a Gulf livery, as there's a bit of an issue further back in the field there. I believe that is that Pullman, Barry Clayton? I'm trying to work out who that is in the background there. not able to make it out, unfortunately, but Guy Swarbrick ending up in the barriers nonetheless. Andrew Harvey there, yes, I don't know if we can call it a Gulf livery car, because there's obviously no Gulf sponsorship. We are not sponsored by Gulf in any way, but that is an iconic / famous, or recognisable, shall we say, blue and orange liveried car there, looking very nice indeed. That is a personal favourite of mine. And Matt Daly does, in fact, in all of that, I was busy talking about liveries, Matt Daly does indeed take provisional pole here in qualifying, about 10th clear of Colin Keneath. That is a very nice first lap in purple sector 2, a 23.0 second sector 2, which was a good couple of tenths clear of anyone else in sector 2 at the moment. And he goes up onto 2 wheels there on the entry into St Mary's corner, trying to carry as much speed as possible. He's going for another improvement on this lap. Gets car up onto 2 wheels. He may be able to still get the fastest lap here, but I imagine in the race, having car up on 2 wheels is not the best strategy in terms of longevity, in terms of looking after the car. We have another contender joining the session. It looks like we've got a fairly full house for the running this year. It should be a very enjoyable watch indeed, and it's going to be a little bit slower in sector 3 for Matt Daly as he actually abandons this lap now. Abandoning this lap on that attempt, obviously lost a little bit too much time with those couple of tiny errors there, meaning he is going back into the pits for a final charge towards pole position. And we have Rosie Hodgson now leaving the pit lane, getting ready for another fast lap as we go back on board with Colin Keneath, as he is on for another fast lap, trying to take pole position back away from Matt Daly. Matt Daly taking him by surprise somewhat there, to take the top spot away from him. That car leaning onto its front left tyre hard, leaning onto its front right tyre hard as well, hopefully retaining all of the air in the tyres, unlike my Mito QV last night, which decided it didn't want to have any pressure in any of its left hand side tyres after leaning on it a fair bit, which was a little bit disconcerting, but nonetheless I'm still here to tell the tale. As we have no one really on for an improvement at the moment. Colin Keneath losing out just a little bit there. I imagine he's getting ready for another charge towards a quickest lap, as we'll go on board with Andrew Whitehead. That is Andrew Whitehead we're on board with. That is another personal favourite livery of mine. The big Alfa Romeo logo on top and the serpent on the side. A little bit of a homage to Alfa's Sauber F1s, Alfa F1s if you will. Monza 2021 livery there, so that's very nice to see. And we're going to go back on board with Colin Keneath as he comes across the line now. I don't know if this is actually going to be an improvement. It's not an improvement there. No personal best sectors for Colin on that occasion, but we're going to stay with him for this lap now as he heads through the Madrid corner, the right-hander there. The first time that the tyres get a little bit of exercise. Obviously this very, very wide and open circuit is Goodwood. Quite a lot of elevation change as well. It doesn't really look like it. It looks quite flat, but there's a lot more than you would expect as we head through Ford Water now. And it is still looking fairly good for Colin Keneath at the moment. No real dramas on this lap so far as he heads, tries to apex it there as we head into St Mary's corner. Looks like it wasn't quite going to make it, unfortunately, and dips onto the grass just a little bit there. And I think he's abandoning this lap, or is he actually? No, maybe just been perspective as we are being stirred down somewhat by the old school AI, or old school kind of crowd graphics there, looking into the camera intensely. Colin Keneath does go purple sector 1 on this lap rather, so it could be on for a good one here. Let's stay with him as he heads down towards Woodcote, heading down the Levant straight now, coming into the basically the final fast part of this track before they head into the chicane to chicane. A very technical little part, I imagine, installed to slow cars down as he rides over the curb there, trying to carry as much speed as possible, heading through the Levant corner and through the chicane later on, and he barrels down towards the start-finish line there. Will it be an improvement for Colin Keneath? It wasn't in Sector 2 and it wasn't in Sector 3 either. Lost out a fair bit of time there. Don't know if that was traffic he had to contend with or the lap just not in it for him. Maybe trying to push the car too hard in Sector 1 has resulted in him having no grip in Sector 2 and Sector 3. But nonetheless, it is still Matt Daly on provisional pole for the moment. And we're going to go on board with Matt Daly actually because he is on for another fast lap attempt. Sector 1 only 0.06 of a second slower than his personal best, which certainly bodes well for this lap if he can easily make that time back in Sector 2 and Sector 3. Let's stay on board with him now as he heads through into St Mary's corner. And on exit here, looking very clean, looking very tidy. He's got a nice bit of empty space around him. He has only got Paul Milman for company behind and John Cole up in front, but he's a fair way up in front as we head down the Levant straight now. And we come towards the end of Sector 2. Not an improvement in Sector 2 either, unfortunately, for Matt, as we head round Woodcote Corner now and get ready for that very technical chicane. Will it be here that he can make the difference? The back end getting a little bit lively, and unfortunately for him, he's just got it a little bit wrong, had to ride onto the grass there and abandon this lap. He actually will carry on, but that will have ruined his laps somewhat there, and yeah, not an improvement. That time round, his best, previous lap rather, being a 1:25.5. That is still a very competitive, very fast lap, but unfortunately for him, not what he needs if he wants to improve his gap to Colin Keneath behind. Colin Keneath behind, meanwhile, is not looking entirely comfortable at this stage in qualifying. We've got just over 2 minutes to go now, and that previous lap again was not an improvement for Colin. The fuel load obviously getting lighter as his qualifying stint carries on, but will it be enough for him to push towards Matt Daly's very impressive time of 1:24.4? Still sees Matt Daly on provisional pole for the moment. And we'll go on board once again with Matt Daly. The time system a little bit glitching there. Someone gets it a little bit wrong. I can't quite make out who that is. Unfortunately, I believe that is the car of... No, it's gone for me, unfortunately. Back on track, and I can't quite make out because we have so many cars in this session this evening, which is great to see that the 2.4 miles of Goodwood are very heavily occupied. It will could be quite interesting in the race to see how instants play their part. And obviously, it's not the widest circuit in the world. It doesn't make too much difference in these GTA 1750s, but when we move on to something like the Giulias or the 156 GTAs, it will be interesting to see how they fare. Across the start-finish line now with Matt Daly, and it was not an improvement there. Still a very competent lap time that time round, a 1:24.6, but it is not enough for Purple Sector 3, but it wasn't an improvement for him that time. As we go on board with Colin Keneath now, Colin Keneath crossing the line here. Will it be enough? It is actually. By just 200ths of a second, he takes provisional pole with less than a minute to go in qualifying. That lap all came to him in Sector 2 and Sector 3 there. Sector 1 he actually lost out a little bit of time, but brought it back within Sector 2. Sector 2 really makes the difference here, as it turns out, and it was what made the difference for Colin as he took provisional pole away from Matt Daly. And as it stands, looks fairly comfortable. Well, I say looks fairly comfortable. It's only 200th of a second, but unless Matt Daly can make all the difference here, and he hasn't in Sector 1, will it be in Sector 2 where he makes all that difference? Will Harper having a little bit of an issue there, colliding with the environment somewhat. And he comes across the line for the timing in Sector 2, and it is Purple Sector 2 for Matt Daly. The track gripping up even at this late stage in qualifying. He takes the Purple Sector 2 there at 22.9, absolutely flying through Sector 2. The back end sliding out as Matt Daly heads round the Woodcote Corner, the final big high-speed corner to contend with here at Goodwood. And there is a car off. There is a car off, and that has rather ruined Matt Daly's chances at taking pole position back away from Colin Keneath there, right at the very end, right when it mattered. He couldn't even cross the line to get another attempt in. Unfortunately, a little bit of an error and a car in the way meant that he has had to bring an end to his qualifying in a way that he wouldn't have wanted to. Meanwhile, Colin Keneath is able to cross the line, nearly gets collided with Matt Daly, abandons this lap by the looks of things, only 4 tenths slower than his best though, so it would have been good either way. But yes, Colin Keneath on pole for race 1 here at Goodwood for round 1. What an interesting qualifying session that was. Colin Keneath able to claw it back right at the very end, and right when we thought Matt Daly was going to be able to take it, one tiny error, one tiny misjudgment, and some more traffic to contend with saw an end to his qualifying push there. Very well done to Alan Matthews as well. An honourable mention goes to him for 3rd position there, within a second of Colin Keneath there. Then we have Barry Clayton running in 4th, John Cole in 5th, and Andrew, I believe is that? No, that is Rob Whitney. I nearly said Rob Whitehead there. No, Rob Whitney, a very impressive performance there to take P6 as we have the drivers leaving now to get ready for race 1 coming up in just a moment. And if qualifying was anything to go by, I'm certainly looking forward to race 1. Let's see how having so many cars on track, so many very dynamic, very lively cars on a historic circuit plays out in the doubleheader coming up in just a second. I will see you then. And welcome back to the action here at Goodwood for round one of this new championship. We are here in the 1750 GTA, and we've got just over 15 seconds until lights out, with a little bit of an interesting grid, if you have noticed. Despite what happened in qualifying, we have Andrew Harvey, Rob Whitney and Will Harper lining up on the front row. I imagine we're going to continue anyway. Don't know if we're going to treat this as a non-championship round or we are going to reset in just a second, but we have 6 red lights on the gantry, and in just a moment we are away. Rob Whitney getting a very nice launch there indeed. He edges out ahead in front of everyone else, and it is 3 wide heading up into turn 1, the Madrid corner. 3 wide, Will Harper on the inside, and it looks like Rob Whitney was squeezed out there. A little bit of contact, seeing him spinning the wrong direction, unfortunately for him. Will Inglis going around the outside, ends up onto the grass and drops back just a little bit. It is Will Harper in second position, and Andrew Harvey who lines up leading the pack, heading through into sector 2 now. Fairly clear of everyone else are Will Harper and Andrew Harvey, it must be said. It is Andrew Whitehead who's been promoted up into third position. He's under pressure from John Cole and Colin Keneath. Colin Keneath making his way through the field nicely. He's finding a way, or trying to find a way past John Cole as they head into St Mary's corner, and we have the everlasting glare of the bystanders there. But it is Colin Keneath who gets the move done on John Cole heading through St Mary's corner, and a lock-up from Andrew Whitehead surely means that he is thinking about a move on him in just a second as well. Instead of a lock-up on him, it is a bit of an error from Andrew Whitehead. Sees him facing the wrong direction and unfortunately colliding with Colin Keneath and off the track. Colin Keneath now up into third position, John Cole in fourth but under pressure from Barry Clayton, and there is a big collision. It is a big collision behind there. That is Rosie Hodson, it looks like Guy Swarbrick and Alan Matthews as well, I believe. Yeah, a big contact heading through into Woodcote there by the looks of it. Oh no, it was on the exit of the Levant corner rather. But everyone 2 by 2 heading into the chicane, and I thought that was going to happen at some point this weekend. The chicane, a very narrow part of the track. You screw up all your speed heading into that narrow section, and a few cars have been caught out there. Looks like John Cole, Barry Clayton, some of those, just to mention a few. Matt Daly unfortunately having to enter the pits there, so it's been quite a chaotic start to race 1 here at Goodwood. But we join the action with the top of the order. It is Mr. Will Harper currently leading the pack. Andrew Harvey in second position, Colin Keneath holding line up in third, and Andrew Brammer now into fourth position with Will Inglis behind him. Paul Milburn finds himself up into seventh position, as it looks like Jack Hodson has a little bit of difficulties there, and John Cole dropping all the way back there. John Cole, after running quite nicely at the start of this race, found himself in a wall pretty much. I think a few drivers struggling with the dynamics of this car. It is one that is going to take a little bit of time to get used to. As we head round the corner with Will Harper, he is about 2 seconds clear of Andrew Harvey behind him. He is breaking away somewhat. He was complaining about the drivability of this car as well, but seems to be fairly comfortable with it at the moment, maybe suiting his driving style just a little bit as we head up towards the Woodcote corner now, and he is looking fairly comfortable, it must be said. And we have a couple of drivers leaving, everyone having to return to the pits, looking like they have some damage to deal with there. As we see Colin Keneath currently setting purple sectors, so he's looking fairly comfortable now, only about half a second behind Andrew Harvey as they head through a chicane now. Andrew Harvey dropping back somewhat, and a little bit of an error on the exit of the chicane there, carrying a bit too much speed, sees him onto the grass, and that puts Colin Keneath up into second position, now a few seconds behind Will Harper. Will Harper's going to have his work cut out in just a few laps time, I imagine. Colin Keneath having some great pace here around Goodwood, and he will be slowly trying to close that 2-second gap and catch up to Will Harper. As we go on board with Will Inglis. Will Inglis going down the inside of Andrew Brammer, and we're once again in a footwell. I do have the automatic camera switching turned off, but unfortunately it decides that I want to look at some GTA 1750 footwells, which there is a time and place for that. Unfortunately that is not in the middle of some battling, as we have more cars having to return to the pits there. Mike Hilton in the pits now, as well as Barry Clayton and John Cole, Guy Swarbrick, Matt Daly, and I believe that is Anthony Gray. Yes, it is, all in the pits now. So definitely a tale of opposing fortunes, if you will. Some drivers benefiting quite nicely from that rather eclectic, rather interesting race start, and some drivers find themselves pitting and I imagine rather forgetting about race 1, getting ready for race 2 instead. It's still Will Harper out in the lead, but Colin Keneath is closing that gap down. A purple sector 1 sees him running much quicker than Will Harper through the sector on this lap. We've still got over 20 minutes to go though, so Will Harper's got plenty of time to defend, and Will Harper's got plenty of time to try and keep Colin behind, but unfortunately riding over the curb like that is gonna it's not going to help his chances, I would say. Riding over the curb like that, lucky to keep it facing in a straight line, but he has lost out so much time. Obviously, the car not going anywhere while it's flying through the air. He's now only 3/10 ahead of Colin Keefe, who's just set the fastest lap of the race so far as we head into the Magic corner now. Will Harper is going to have his work out for him, using as much of the track as he dares, trying to be as brave as possible, trying to carry as much speed as possible on these vintage tyres. He certainly has his work cut out for him, as we see Colin Keefe just following the apex just a little bit closer as we get towards St Mary's corner. Now, St Mary's corner as well, a lot of time can be made. You lose quite a lot of speed through here, and the exit is what really matters as we once again end up in the interior of a car. And on exit here, we see Colin Keefe not quite as close as I thought he would have been to Will Harper, actually. Although on exit we see he's made about a 10th. It's not quite what I expected. I expected him to be right on the rear bumper of Will Harper in front of him, as it looks like Anthony Gray, or no, it's Alan Matthews and Andrew Brammer having a little bit of an issue further down the order. I imagine they're having quite the battle. Alan Matthews certainly knows how to find himself in a battle of the ages. And as we saw in the touring car running last year, he certainly can battle well in a pack, and he is in a pack at the moment. Let's see how he progresses through this race. A lock-up from Will Harper. Has he got too much speed on him? It looks like he has. The car rotating a little bit on corner entry into Woodcote there. Very lucky to keep it pointing the right direction on track, and still has Colin Keefe behind, but still only 4/10 of a second behind. So he is certainly gaining on him, is Colin Keefe. Starting to apply that pressure now. Will Harper's going to have his work out of him if he wanted to keep Colin Keefe behind for the remaining 20 minutes of this race, as we see some more incidents further down the order, some more cars having to enter the pits, unfortunately. And while all this has been happening, Matt Daly, who was one of those who had to pit on lap 1, finds himself currently running P14, but setting the fastest lap of the race. He is trying to unlap himself from Andrew Harvey by the looks of things. Or is he? Is Andrew Harvey having a couple of difficulties there? No, I think Andrew Harvey has actually lapped. Yeah, Andrew Harvey has lapped Matt Daly in the pits there. Not quite used to seeing cars lapped in the pits, obviously. It's not something we see too much in the racing leagues. And it is Matt Daly trying to find his way past. And speaking of trying to find his way past, Colin Keefe trying to find his way past Will Harper as we head into the Levant corner now. As it looks like it's all gone wrong for Colin Keefe there. The camera switched just at the wrong time there. I was going to see what was going on with this battle, but it looked like Colin Keefe has just dropped off the surface of the tarmac there. Found himself, I don't know if he was going in a little bit too hot, a little bit of a move that didn't stick, or maybe a little bit of contact possibly, but for whatever reason Colin Keefe facing the wrong direction. Still currently running P2. He's got a fairly comfortable gap to the cars behind, although I say fairly comfortable, that is now shrunk down dramatically. Those cars behind him gaining substantially, carrying so much more speed than Colin, who has just had a little bit of an issue. But Will Harper can now breathe a bit of a sigh of relief, and I imagine he has done. Puts Colin Keefe about 14 seconds behind, and there is contact between Alan Matthews and Will Inglis as they head through the Woodcote corner there. That puts Will Inglis into the field of looks like daffodils, I think. And unfortunately, he is now dropping down the order. Now in P8, probably going to be, I was about to say P9, but that is a lapped traffic there. John Cole, very lucky to avoid Will Inglis there, heading into the very tight chicane, the very technical part of the track that ends up being quite the bottleneck on circuit almost. I thought we would have a couple of issues there, and it looks like we have had so far. Will Inglis running P8 then, under pressure from Jack Hodson in P9, about 2/10 separating these two drivers as they start the next lap. As we have Andrew Brammer under pressure from Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews looking at a way around the outside. It could be very brave of him to make it stick there if he can, and he's still trying to go for it. Still trying to go for it heading into St Mary's. Very brave indeed, and unfortunately it didn't quite work there. Has to go over the curb on the inside of St Mary's. Has he lost out there? He looks like he's lost out to Paul Millman. Paul Millman running very nicely indeed, currently in P4. As we have Alan Matthews dropping further back within this pack. Rob Whitney running P6 at the moment. He can now start putting pressure on Alan Matthews. We've seen these two certainly know how to battle each other, and we should be seeing that carrying on in this race as well. As we have further back, it is Will Inglis, and between them Andrew Harvey. Andrew Harvey starting on the front row of this race, having a couple of issues on the first lap. Now finds himself in P7. It certainly could have gone worse for him. By the standards of this race, it has not been too bad at all, but he will have wanted to have a little bit of a better start to this race. We are nearly 10 minutes in already. So much action from these very lively cars at this historic circuit. Of course, if you're new to the running this year, welcome. I hope you enjoy watching, and just a little bit of an explanation as to how this championship will work. So much like we saw in the second half of last year's running, we have the 3 cars on offer that being the GTA 1750 that we are commencing this year's running in, and what a car to start with, I must say. Coming up next, we have the Alfa Romeo Giulia GTM, the modern car. That is certainly no joke, having had the chance to drive both this and the Giulia. I would say the Giulia, as gorgeous as these cars are, the Giulia is by far and away the most impressive, being the most modern one. It is a powerhouse, basically. It is had a go of it around Spa, and it could keep up with the GT3 car. Yeah, certainly not a car to be taken lightly, but of course, I think the looks prize has to go to these GTA 1750s. As we will go on board with the battle forming for what is going to be effectively third position in this race. Andrew Brammer finding himself running in P3 at the moment, doing a very nice job, about 2 seconds clear of everyone else. It is Paul Millman in P4, Alan Matthews trying to catch up to him in P5, and then Rob Whitney a little bit further behind, and then we have a bit of a gap to Andrew Harvey, who we were just on board with for a little while there. Will Inglis obviously dropping back just a little bit there, under pressure from Jack Hodgson, though it looks like he's starting to break away from him. As we have Alan Matthews getting past Paul Millman. Paul Millman's all gone wrong from there. What a shame for Paul Millman. Finds himself in a wall. One tiny little error in these very lively, very tricky cars can see you spat off this very high-speed circuit as he tries to rejoin in a safe manner, and does so, which is good to see. Will Harper, I believe, just set the fastest lap in the race, if I'm not mistaken. I'll have to double-check that. No, that accolade goes to Colin Keneath. A 125.6 for Colin Keneath, about 11 seconds behind Will Harper at the moment. That small error when he was getting ready to set up the overtake on Will Harper sees him about 14-15 seconds behind Will Harper at this point, well, a few laps ago rather. He has closed that down somewhat in the previous few minutes, but will it be enough? Will he have enough of a pace advantage towards the end of this race to catch up to Will Harper? We've got to have quite a battle forming up here, folks, coming up towards the end of this race, so stay tuned for that. As we go back on board with Andrew Harvey, under pressure from Will Inglis, and a little bit further behind now is Jack Hodgson. And then apart from that, the closest on track, I would say, to be honest, is this pack. We will see what is going on with Matt Daly. Matt Daly obviously has the pace to challenge the front-running drivers, but has been rather misfortunate in this race so far, currently running P14, a little bit further behind Andrew Whitehead. John Cole as well, rookie to the championship this year, did a very impressive job at the finale of the Tasman TCR Trophy. Obviously the mini endurance event that we held at Bathurst. For that, he impressed me immensely, fresh into the car, fresh into the series, and had front running pace. He is currently in P16 after a misfortunate start to this race as well. As we see, looks like Rosie Holton getting past. Is that Andrew Whitehead there? That is Andrew. No, it's Paul Millman rather. Paul Millman may be struggling with this car just a little bit then, as Andrew Whitehead also getting past him now, as I'll try to rectify the old on and off. I believe should hopefully fix the camera issues, as we're on board with Will Harper now, seeing his car leaning through St Mary's corner there. Just goes to show just how much times have changed, how much the standards and just how much advancements have been made in terms of car, because you wouldn't, modern race car would not stand for this level of body roll, which is a bit of a shame, I think, because it adds a little bit to the cars heading around the circuit. They just look so dynamic, so entertaining to watch, especially when the back end gets out, which these cars are certainly prone to doing. As we are on board with Colin Keneath, now only 10 seconds behind Will Harper out in front, so he's separated himself from Andrew Brammer quite substantially now. Matt Daly unlapping himself from Andrew Brammer up front there. But Andrew Brammer running fairly comfortably in this race so far. That gap between him and Alan Matthews has closed down, so that is one that we're going to watch as well. Let's see how Alan Matthews can progress throughout the final half of this race. We have just under, or around about 12 to 13 minutes to go now. Either that, obviously quite a short lap here at Goodwood. A 126 in these old school GTA 1750s is not the longest lap in the world, so we have around about 30 minutes to go. Will Alan Matthews be able to make up the second gap between the two cars here? Likewise for Colin Keneath, can he in 30 minutes make up 10 seconds in terms of current pace at the moment? Previously, Will Harper's previous lap was a 127.1, Colin Keneath's a 126.4 there. So about 7/10 a lap. It may be possible for Colin, especially if there is an error out in front, it may be possible for Colin to start to put pressure on Will Harper, start to slow him down, start to force some errors, and get that move done towards the end of this race. So that'll be a very exciting one to watch. Rob Whitney coming in P5 then. He's doing a very nice job in his first full season in the pro categories. So well done for that, Rob. You're running very nicely in P5 at the moment. About 9 seconds clear of Andrew Harvey behind, and about 5 seconds behind Alan Matthews at the moment. Let's see if he can catch up to him. Alan Matthews obviously looking to get involved in that battle with Andrew Brammer there. And it looks like that battle is about to happen in just a second as we head down towards, or down through the Levant Straight rather. They are near enough side by side, only a few hundredths of a second separating them rather, and they are side by side, and they're going to head into the braking zone for Woodcote Corner, and it's going to be Andrew Brammer just about out in front. Although, was he trying to carry too much speed in defence? It looks like he was, and tried to keep it on the track, and unfortunately it looked like Alan Matthews was there. He was just carrying so much speed, ends up spinning around trying to save it, and drops back down to P4 now. I don't believe he's got too much damage from that note, like he has, but that would have shaken him up a little bit. That puts Alan Matthews up onto the podium for the moment, but Rob Whitney has just seen what's happened in front of him, and he knows he might have the pace to get past him. So a very exciting battle developing for that bottom spot on the podium now. As we see, it looks like Will Harper must have had a bit of an issue, because in just a couple of laps, I mentioned a couple of small errors could make a big difference here in this race, and I believe he's had a little bit of an error there. Colin Cleese has a bit of lap traffic to contend with, but that lap traffic getting out of the way nicely there. Andrew Whitehead moving out of the way very courteously. Will Harper is all of a sudden only 5 seconds ahead of Colin Caniff as they head through the Levant Corner now. And it looks like, is that Rob Whitney? That is Rob Whitney having issues with the car potentially, maybe a little bit of an off, causing some issues with the car. Looking fairly slow down the straight. He's picking up the pace now though, so maybe just a little bit of an incident. Drops down to P8 though, did Rob Whitney, so not an ideal race from his perspective as a result of that. Winners having to return to the pit as well. I don't know if that is a penalty that he has to serve, or if that is a little bit of damage that he has to resolve before the end of this race. Either way, it looks like Andrew Whitehead taking an interesting line through the chicane there, as does Matt Daly, both opting to ride onto the grass. It may actually be quicker if you're carrying so much extra pace through the chicane. You take a little bit of risk with the lack of grip over the grass and the more kind of alternative line, shall we say, and find yourself onto the grass and bombing it down towards the start-finish straight. As we see, Colin Keith now only 3.7 seconds behind Will Harper there, as we see Rob Whitney trading places with Andrew Harvey, obviously having those issues just a lap ago. Rob Whitney now looking to climb his way back up the order with the few laps remaining that we have. Should have about 6 laps remaining in this race now, so every single corner counts at this point, and it looks like he's making good progress, as is Matt Daly up into P11, obviously a lap down when compared to the leaders, but still running very nicely in terms of pace. But speaking of running nicely in terms of pace, we're going to go on board with Colin Caniff, who's just ahead of Matt Daly. Has just set a personal best sector 1 there, a 33.6. Obviously that's quite impressive with a more substantial fuel load than what we run in qualifying, but as the fuel loads get lighter, so do the cars. The tyres, I'll have to speak to the drivers about how these vintage tyres perform, because they are a bit of a mystery compound to me. I can't say I've done too much vintage car running. Obviously I have had a little bit of practice in this GTA 1750, but not enough to learn how they fare over a race stint. Obviously taking a little bit of an element away from the drivers, the strategy that you can deploy. Do you pick mediums? Do you pick hards? Maybe a soft can get you to the end of the race, as we see Colin Caniff going past some lapped traffic there on the inside, running very nicely. Now only a second behind Will Harper. Only a second between him and Will Harper as we head through into the second corner of this lap now. Let's see what Colin can do through Sector 2. We know he can work his magic through Sector 2, as he did at the end of qualifying to take pole position away from Matt Daly. Now he's looking to take the lead of this race away from Will Harper as we head through St Mary's Corner and into the Levant section now, as Rosie Hodson looks to get out of the way of the moving the lapping traffic there, and also very nicely, as we see, it looks like you're getting even closer to Will Harper now, and now only 8 tenths of a second, so he's just chipping away ever so slightly at that gap in front of him. Certainly has the upper hand in terms of pace, and I imagine one small little error that I was mentioning just a couple of laps ago has made the big difference in this race. It looks like Will Harper, had he been able to have a clean race in terms of getting used to the car, keeping it on the track, may have been able to bring it home with the victory, but it's now going to be very, very hard to say if that is going to be possible now. Colin Cleeve has the upper hand in terms of pace. His right is welded to his rear bumper heading through the chicane there, it must be said, on the exit, right over the curb, and gets ready to start another lap. So let's stay with them now as they battle it out for first position in this race. They're about 20 seconds clear of everyone else. But it looks like Will Harper has the upper hand in terms of pace down the straight. It is, of course, an open setup championship. Drivers are free to tweak these setups to suit their needs, suit their driving style as they best please. And it looks to be the case that Will Harper has a little bit of a different alternate strategy, rather to Colin Cleeve, gapping him a little bit on the straights there. But it is Colin Cleeve now side by side with Will Harper as we get ready to head into St Mary's corner. Will Harper being very brave to try and keep it on the outside, trying to hang it on the outside. He's going to come back onto the track. Is it going to be contact? No, I think he's just about avoided it, which is nice to see. But yes, Will Harper trying his utmost to defend against Colin Cleeve, who was encroaching on him, coming down the inside there, and unfortunately it was too little too late for Will. A very, very brave defensive move wasn't going to work. Unfortunately, he drops back about 13 seconds behind Colin Cleeve, and it is Colin Cleeve now leading this race behind Matt Daly. Matt Daly, the lapped car in front of him, of course, looking fairly comfortable in terms of pace, as I mentioned just a second. Actually, he's unlapped himself. Matt Daly has now unlapped himself in all of that kerfuffle, shall we say, heading through St Mary's corner. So now running P9, Matt Daly has unlapped himself. And actually, if we see, of course, it's not only the pro lead that matters. We also have to focus on the battle for the AM Championship at the moment. That is John Baker. John Baker in P6 at the moment. He's had a fairly clean, consistent race after all the commotion at the start of the race. He's been impressive, I would say, in the AM Championship so far. He's been a bit of a standout since he joined towards the end of last year's running, doing a mighty job indeed. We have Will Harper then currently about 14 seconds behind Colin Cleeve, and even if he's not careful in these remaining 5 or so minutes that we have left, he may find himself under pressure from Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews just setting his personal best lap of the race. He has got the pace behind him, only about 4 seconds clear, or 4 seconds behind Will Harper now, so he'll be one to watch out for as we enter the final stages of this race now. Well, it's certainly been an action-packed race so far, as we have a little bit of a battle forming between John Baker. I mentioned he was running fairly cleanly and consistently. It looks like Steve Knight was getting ready to put some pressure on him. Steve Knight gets it a little bit wrong on the entry into Woodcote, goes over the curbs, brings it back onto the track, but unfortunately Andrew Harvey was there, and there's big contact between the two drivers there. They have rather ruined their charge towards the end of this race. Luckily able to carry on with not too much loss there, really, it must be said, only a position loss between the two drivers. But that relieves John Baker of a little bit of pressure as we head through turn 1 now. And I must say, yeah, what an absolute shame it is for John Cole to be down the order so far. He had some impressive pace in qualifying for his first time out, and as I mentioned in that Tasman TCR trophy, he was doing a mighty job in the Tasmania round. The Bathurst round. He is looking to unlap himself compared to John Baker with that impressive pace though, and does so with relative ease. Will Harper dropping off the back of Colin Cleeve a little bit. Colin Cleeve now up in front in some clean air. We get to see a bit of a Colin Cleeve special now towards the end of this race, where he has not so much pressure on him anymore. Not so many cars around him on track, only the very quick Matt Daly out in front, and he is able to increase his pace a little bit, I am sure, although he's no longer being enticed by a car to overtake. He's I imagine practicing getting ready for race 2 coming up in just a few moments time. Obviously the reverse grid race, we'll find out on the grid whether or not it will be a half reverse grid or a full reverse grid. We did have a little bit of an issue in race 1 in Kyalami, in which the entire grid was reversed, and Will Harper having a bit of an issue there at St Mary's corner, finding himself in the field there. Oh dear, what a shame to see his race come to an end like this. He's going to be able to bring it home, but he is not in the position that he deserved from an otherwise very impressive race. One little error there, it looks like, seems to have forced him off the track by the looks of things. Didn't quite get a full look at that, but that promotes Alan Matthews up into second place all of a sudden. I'm not sure he will have entirely expected that at some points in this race. And Andrew Brammer running P3 then, as he is not too far behind Alan Matthews himself. Andrew Brammer obviously in a little bit of commotion himself at the start of this race. It's hard to find a driver on the field at the moment who wasn't involved in something, some type of incident, some type of action on the first lap of this race, but everyone bringing it home clean. We have most drivers actually being able to continue on in this race, which is good to see. A few drivers having to pit, unfortunately. It is both Jack Hodson and Rosie Hodson unfortunately having to pit at this time, which is a shame to see with so little of the race to go. But it looks to be that all of the battles have somewhat died down, although Steve Knight, who did have some bad looks of things, did have some pace underneath him before him, trying to pressure John Baker ahead of him. And he'll be seeing if he can get the lead of the AM race. He's only about a second between the two now, so let's stay on board with these two as they head around for what will be the penultimate lap of this race in just a second. Let's see what develops within this battle. Now only about 7/10 of a second between the two drivers as they head through chicane on the exit. John Baker, a little bit of rotation from the rear of the car. He guns it back onto the throttle. Matt Daly kicking up a little bit of dirt there, as does Conkeneef. Conkeneef stuck behind Andrew Brammer. No, it's not Andrew Brammer. Apologies for that. That's Andrew Harvey, I believe. Yes, it is. They're stuck behind him there, gets past though as they cross the line for what will now be the penultimate lap of this race. Only 0.3 of a second between Steve Knight and John Baker as we head down towards Ford Water. Steve Knight looking to move up the inside. Will it stick? No, he's a little bit too far back, and there's big contact between the two drivers there. Steve Knight very brave to try and get the move done there, and it wasn't to be, unfortunately. He finds himself running onto the grass, and Ford, luckily for himself rather, doesn't spin around and ends up in a hedge somewhere, but that has rather brought an end to his charge in this race. He's lost quite a lot of pace there, drops back down to P9. Matt Daly all of a sudden finds himself in P6, getting past John Baker. Andrew Harvey facing the wrong direction. I think he might have come together with Guy Swarbrick there. Guy Swarbrick running P13 rather. Andrew Harvey in P9 now. So at the very end of this race, still plenty of action to be had. Matt Daly now getting past John Baker there. It just goes to show a very impressive turn of pace for Matt Daly. So far down the order, I think I saw him P16 or P17 at one point with the pits that went on early on in the race. Now finds himself up into P6 ahead of the lead of the AM race. So he is showing that he's got the pace in these cars in particular. Let's see what he can do in the rest of the GTA Championship. Of course, we can only speculate because it's only round one here at the moment. And what an action-packed round one has been so far. We're not even halfway through yet, technically, as Matt Daly actually now goes on to set the best lap of the race so far, so he's looking very pacey indeed, as we have Will Harper currently running P4 there, not the race that he would have wanted, and that was the action that I was actually looking for. It is Andrew Brammer and Alan Matthews. I mentioned Andrew Brammer might be able to get past Alan Matthews towards the end of the race, and it looks like that has happened as we head down towards Woodcut now. It is Alan Matthews who takes the move back away from Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer's not going to try anything brave up the inside, but he does have one final lap to get that move done. But we are going to join Colin Cleef in just a second as he heads round Goodwood for one final time here in race one. On board then with Colin Cleef heading through the St Mary's corner, carrying quite a lot of pace through there, about as brave as he wants to be. Matt Daly just set a purple sector one actually, only a little bit behind here, about, well, just under a lap behind, set a personal best sector one, a purple sector one rather. And the battle between these two has somewhat dissolved as we enter this final lap now. But it looks like, is that Paul Millen under a little bit of pressure? I believe it is. It's Paul Millen under pressure from, looks to be Will Harper, in fact. So Will Harper just looking to get past that lap traffic. But it's Colin Cleef who we are going to focus on as he heads round the Woodcut corner there. About 35 seconds clear of anyone else. He had to work for it, get past Will Harper, eventually did. After what was a bit of a hectic start to the race, in which a race that he qualified on pole for ended up about halfway down the order, gets it a little bit wrong on the exit of the corner, but it doesn't matter anyway because he is going to cross the line here at Goodwood, taking first position. A very well executed race for Colin Cleef, driving his way up through the field, and he's I imagine we'll be treating that as a little bit of practice for the reverse grid race coming up in just a second there. Alan Matthews is going to be coming home in P2 by the looks of things, unless it all goes wrong from here at Woodcut, will it? No, he's looking fairly comfortable at this point now. Only the chicane to navigate now. Well done to Alan Matthews for capitalising on a few other people's mistakes, a few other people's misfortunes rather. Comes home to round out the second spot on the podium there, taking home P2. Well done to Alan Matthews there. And in just a few seconds behind him, after 25 minutes of running, it is Andrew Brammer who rounds out the podium here at Goodwood for race one. Commiserations to Mr. Will Harper, who after leading this race for a little while, just a couple of misfortunate corners really saw him from, demoted down to P4, but still a nice haul of points to start off the year's running with. as we see it is Rob Whitney heading through chicanes now, his first season in the first full season rather in the pro running, taking home P5 there. And yeah, someone who I do want to watch actually is Matt Daly. Matt Daly, after such an unfortunate race for him, certainly demonstrated he has the pace to run with the front runners there. Coming across line now in P6 after a very difficult race there. John Cole crosses the line now in P11. Obviously, the lap cars finishing their race. Commiserations to him as well. He had some pace. He had some decent pace in qualifying. Unfortunately, not able to demonstrate it to his full potential there, with a little bit of a few issues rather at the start of race 1. But let's put race 1 behind us, because in just a moment, actually, before we do put race 1 behind us, go to see, do we have any victory donuts? We don't yet. We might do at the end. I'm always looking for the race for the victory donuts now. But let's put race 1 behind us and get ready for race 2, which is coming up in just a moment. So I will see you in just a few minutes' time. Goodwood. We are ready for race 2, the reverse grid race, or I say the reverse grid race. With everything that went on with the grid order in race 1, we basically got a repeat of what happened there. By the looks of things, according to the timing system, it should be Andrew Whitehead on pole, with Barry Clayton in second and John Cole in third. We can see those cars lined up together, but as you can see, that is, by the looks of things, I can't quite make out who they are, unfortunately. I believe that is, yeah, it's Anthony Gray, Mike Hilton and Will Inglis who actually line up on the front row there. A very interesting grid order here at Goodwood, of course, with all of the cars evenly lined up on the front row there. And it is 6 red lights on the gantry. The camera system is not quite enjoying the grid at Goodwood by the looks of things, but we should be okay to carry on. Nonetheless, I'll just try and fix that there. Looks of things I have done. It is Matt Daly now up on the front row, is it? I don't know. Anyway, it's 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away, as it looks like that is Matt Daly. We're going to stay on board with. I can't quite make out what's going on from this camera angle. I'm trying to change it as quickly as I can, but it is Will Inglis who edges out in front for the moment, although Anthony Gray takes back that position on the inside there, and we will join the action at the front of the field there in just a second. Here we go, as it looks like someone running onto the grass there. That is Andrew Harby, not getting an excellent start to this race, unfortunately, for him. Paul Millman been having a couple of issues with his steering wheel so far this evening, able to join back though just a few seconds after the race heads underway, so we should be able to still make some good progress. Will Inglis round the outside, able to get the move done on Anthony Gray before they head into the St Mary's corner. Very important that he got the move done there, although he's been a little bit brave on the exit of St Mary's corner, but it looks like he's possibly not used to the car having so much extra fuel back in it once again. Finds himself somewhat, I imagine, disillusioned there with this race. Both him and Anthony Gray ending up in the field. That puts Matt Daly up into the lead of this race, and that's exactly how we wanted race 1 to go, and it looks like this is how it's played out for him so far. Barry Clayton currently running P2, and John Cole currently running P3. Let's see how he runs now with a much cleaner start to this race than the previous race. Colin Knief getting very brave there, trying to get a couple of overtakes done, dipping onto the grass ever so slightly there. Currently running P6. He's, as we head through Woodcut and head into his footwell, looking to make some headway as we head into the chicanes there. So far, I was about to say, so far drives keeping it clean somewhat. Andrew Whitehead, I can't work out, we just about clipped that car next to him a little bit, or just some plain oversteer there. But for whatever reason, he faced the wrong direction, and that brought Colin Knief up in that as well. Will Inglis also struggling with the back end of the car. The differential, not quite, I believe he's might be open this car actually, as you can see there, one tyre fire on Will Inglis' car there. But that puts Colin Keefe back down into P13. He doesn't have too much damage, so he shouldn't have to pit. But let's see how that fares for him in terms of this race, and let's see where he can end up towards the end of this race. It is Matt Daly still leading this race by about a second for the moment. Barry Clayton behind him, doing a very nice job keeping up with him actually. Currently heading through St Mary's corner, but it all went wrong for the leaders on lap 1. John Cole has found himself in a little bit of clear air, which is exactly what he needed to gain that experience in the car and to show off his potential. About 3 seconds behind Barry Clayton. Let's see if he can catch up to him as we progress through this race. All the positions changing ground. It is Andrew Harby now down to 11th position, as Mr. Will Harper, who led this race for so long in race 1, finds himself in P10 all of a sudden. Not an ideal start to the race for him, but he is hoping to make some headway now, as there is cars pretty much 4 wide heading on the exit of the Levant Straight, or onto the Levant Straight rather. So certainly not an easy overtake to be had here at Goodwood, as we have as Jack Hudson. Oh no, is it Rosie Hudson and Jack Hudson? It's not, but it is Jack Hudson and Rosie Hudson who come together and collide there. Rosie Hudson up onto 2 wheels, riding over the curve, able to carry on there, but that is not what the 2 Hudsons wanted there. As we have a little bit of contact between the 2, and they drop back from, I'm about to say they drop back from John Baker ever so slightly, but John Baker is once again under pressure from the cars behind him. John Baker, leading this AM race at the moment, is hoping to make a little bit of a gap between him and Jack Hudson behind him, although it looks like contact between Jack Hudson and Rosie Hudson, I believe, should rather occupy Jack for the time being. As Will Harper, in all of this chaos, finds his way through the pack ever so slightly up into P9. Colin Knief, with all of this chaos in this pack, there is basically 6 cars battling out for the same position based on which corner we are at. As Will Harper getting very brave around the outside there, trying to make the move stick on the inside of St Mary's corner. Can he box him off there? There is a little bit of contact between the 2 by the looks of things. Jack Hudson spinning out there. Does he catch it? Can he catch it? Oh, I can't quite find out. Oh, no, it looks like he's been able to catch that car there, which is has he actually? No, he hasn't been able to catch it, unfortunately. Has he? No, he hasn't. Couldn't quite make out camera angles, being a little bit peculiar there. But that was very well held for as long as it was for Jack Hodson. Will Harper now up into P9 with John Baker for company once again. Colin Keefe up into P10 now with Andrew Harvey for company rather. He tries to make his way up into the point scoring positions. Of course, will be a point score as Rosie Hodson gets braver and braver with that curb, near enough perpendicular to the tarmac as we saw in qualifying. And is that Will Harper facing the wrong direction? It is. A little bit of an error there on the exit of the chicanes for Will Harper. He's now facing the wrong direction, trying to find a point at which he can rejoin the track in a safe manner. Unfortunately, with so many cars on a 2.4 mile circuit, it is quite heavily occupied, and he can't quite get back onto the track as quickly as we would have wanted there. As we will go on board with the lead of the race now, as actually no, we have a battle between Andrew Whitehead and Will Harper as we head into turn 1, contending with some lap traffic while they're at it as well. Let's see what happens with these two drivers. Will Harper ends up benefiting from that lap traffic, able to break away from Andrew Whitehead just a little bit, as we see Barry Clayton running quite nicely earlier on, swapping positions with Mike Hilton rather. Mike Hilton doing a very impressive job up into P5 at the moment. This race has gone much better than race 1 for him, but it is John Cole who also shares that with Mike Hilton, currently up into P2, ending up past Alan Matthews. Not sure if it's a bit of an error for Alan Matthews. If we compare their pace, it looks like that John Cole actually isn't currently leading in terms of pace. He's about 0.6 of a lap slower on current pace, so Alan Matthews potentially having a bit of an issue there, which sees him down in P3. It is Matt Daly who leads this race though, about 9 seconds clear of everyone else, so he's doing a nice job at the moment, and he will not want to repeat what Will Harper did in race 1. It could be said that the Will Harper and Matt Daly have somewhat swapped roles in this race, obviously Matt Daly being held back by an early race incident as Will Harper led, and those two have switched places somewhat. Matt Daly now leading. He'll be hoping to stay quite a distance away from the rest of the field. He wants a nice, safe and secure way to start off the year's running with, as we see Rosie Hodson getting past Andrew Harvey there. Andrew Harvey seems to be struggling a little bit in this race. Let's see if Andrew can get back past now as we head down towards St Mary's corner in just a second, heading through Ford Water first though. Andrew Harvey has the inside line there, pushes, puts a little bit of pressure on Rosie Hodson, able to get past, taking that inside line, just carrying a little bit more speed, a little bit of less distance rather, as we head through St Mary's now. He is ahead of Rosie Hodson as we head through this corner. He is ahead now, only 3 seconds behind Colin Keefe, who is currently running P8. He's had a nice recovery in this race so far, even with that massive incident at the exit of the chicanes. He is now past John Baker. John Baker looking not entirely comfortable in the car in race 2, it must be said. Now down to P8, still leading this AM race for the second for the time being though, so he can at least take solace in that fact. But I'm sure the racing driver inside of him will just want to progress through the order as much as possible, even if he is only an AM racer for the time being. As we have Andrew Harvey actually now very close to him. Andrew Harvey obviously in the pro category, not battling out for the AM race lead, as we have, it looks like Barry Clayton getting ever closer to Alan Matthews, so we're going to focus on that for just a second there. Alan Matthews maybe struggling with the car a little bit in this race. Has rather allowed John Cole to break away from him. The gap now stands at about 6 seconds. So he is struggling somewhat with the car potentially. He looked quite comfortable in race 1, and that doesn't seem to be the case in race 2, although maybe that was just because we had a few of the cars held back in race 1. Speaking of a few of the cars, it is Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton now putting that pressure on Alan Matthews as we head through the St Mary's corner complex, which leads straight into the Levant corner. There's only a little bit of a straightaway between the two, because this track is basically just constant corners really. You have the start-finish straight, you have a little bit of a straight between Manchwick and Ford Water, and then the Levant straight, which is also comprised of corners primarily. Apart from that, this track is dominated by high-speed corners, which really puts the pressure on in these vintage cars running vintage tyres. It is a challenge for the drivers, and that is something that they are reflecting outside of the races, post-race, and after some practice and qualifying sessions as well, as it is still Barry Clayton trying to hunt down Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews gets it a little bit wrong on the exit of the chicanes there. That will bring Barry Clayton even closer in that vibrant neon green and kind of a vibrant blue livery there. I suppose it is a kind of royal blue, dark blue, but also kind of not. It's very vibrant livery, shall we say. It is quite a nice one as well. It's a particular favourite of mine. Some excellent liveries in this year's running, and I'm looking forward to showing you the Giulias and the 156s, as well as the Formula RSS Supreme that we've seen in round 1. But they are side by side as we head into St Mary's corner. Very nicely executed from Barry Clayton there. No real difficulty for him, just carries so much more pace. But Alan Matthews tries to bring it back, tries to get the move, tries to get a switchback done on him as we head through St Mary's corner, and unfortunately that spurs Barry Clayton off, that throws him into that field there. And I believe Alan Matthews is very courteously, I imagine he got his braking wrong or something there, is crawling around the track to try and allow Barry Clayton to catch up by the looks of things, although unfortunately he's a bit too far back, so he might just carry on now. That promotes Mike Hilton onto the podium. Then Mike Hilton now running 3rd position. Let's compare their paces to see how this battle should form up in just a moment. I'm not Amazon Web Services, but I still can provide some relevant data on track to see how the drivers will compare. Mike Hilton trying to carry as much pace as possible through that corner there. The car skipping about a little bit on corner entry. On his previous lap then, we have Mike Hilton setting a 125.9, but that's going to be worse on this lap because a little bit of contact with the wall there. Trying to carry, maybe trying to be a bit too brave through the chicane, and unfortunately collides with the wall. That puts Alan Matthews back into 3rd position then, and in all of that chaos, that actually puts Colin Knief up into 5th. We've got just under 50 minutes on the timer to go, and Colin Knief is already back up into 5th position. He could be on for a very nice points haul here this weekend. Matt Daly is looking to have a fairly comfortable victory unless something goes wrong in the remaining half of this race. But yeah, Matt Daly looking fairly comfortable up there. But Colin Knief should be able to progress his way through the field a little bit more. He has a few cars a couple of seconds ahead of him, but he has the upper hand in terms of pace. I can tell you that his best lap at 124.7, whereas the cars ahead of him are about 1.2 seconds slower on pace at the moment. So he is looking like he's on for some interesting battles coming up in just a second. And speaking of interesting battles coming up in just a second, it is between Andrew Harvey and Andrew Brammer and Willing Bliss to some extent as well, as they head through St Mary's corner. Now we have a bit of a 3-way battle building up as Barry Clayton overtakes John Baker. John Baker leading that AM race for the moment then. Although, is he actually? Yes, he is. He is. I wasn't quite sure if Andrew Harvey had been passing, but of course if it was focused on Andrew Harvey, he was a little bit further back. In fact, Andrew Harvey has somewhat dropped off from Andrew Brammer out in front of him there. Andrew Brammer getting closer to Willing Bliss then, so maybe this is the battle that we have to watch as we head down towards the Woodcut corner now. And it could be between these two drivers. Speaking of being between two drivers as well, I will try and focus on the battle, but we have to watch Colin Knief as he charges his way back through the order now, putting some pressure on Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton, who briefly enjoyed the podium there, hanging it round the inside, making it stick. He takes P4 with ease, takes P4 away from Mike Hilton. Colin Knief now up into 4th position, as we have a little bit of an issue for Will Harper by the looks of things. This is a stark contrast to race 1 for Will Harper, unfortunately for him, and he will, I imagine, be looking forward to the next round instead of what is going on here at Goodwood. But Colin Knief then now only about 1.5 seconds at some points behind Alan Matthews on the podium. That, I imagine, is Colin Knief's aim, to get up onto the podium and potentially think about overtaking John Cole, with currently running P2. Has a very comfortable race so far. He doesn't need to push it too hard, he just needs to keep a nice consistent pace, does John Cole, and he should be on for a good result. But that may not be possible if Colin Knief is able to push and catch up to him with the remaining 14 or so minutes in this race. So we have a bit of a battle forming between these three cars now. Andrew Brammer, John Baker and Andrew Harvey are the ones currently battling it out. Andrew Harvey's a little bit further behind, rather. It is Willing Bliss, Andrew Brammer and John Baker battling it out, as Willing Bliss is under pressure from Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer looking up the inside. That will give him the outside for the Woodcut corner coming up in just a second, so he's going to have to be brave on the brakes if he wants to keep this move or secure it. He chooses to be a little bit more careful and plays it safe, backs off just a little bit, allows Willing Bliss to take position heading into the chicane now, but he is very close, only about 0.3 of a second separating these drivers. And Willing Bliss has got very brave, and the back end's gone away from him. That has picked up Andrew Brammer and John Baker. John Baker able to carry on. Andrew Brammer not quite yet back on the circuit. Both Willing Bliss and Andrew Brammer now running once again. That's promoted John Baker up into 9th position. Andrew Harvey now up into 8th position. So that has worked. That has played into Andrew Harvey's hands somewhat. Now up into P8 is Andrew Harvey. be. We will actually go back and look at the battle forming between Alan Matthews and Colin Knief, as Alan Matthews gets it a little bit wrong there, allows Colin Knief past up into third position now, as Colin Knief is already a couple of seconds clear owing to those issues that Alan Matthews was having. So looking nice and calm and composed now for Colin Knief. He's done most of the hard work. He can settle down into the race, try and push towards John Cole. We're focusing on the wrong car, apologies for that. Try and push towards John Cole, about 13 seconds ahead. As we compare their paces on track, their last lap, John Cole's about 1.5 seconds slower than Colin Knief on the previous lap. So with 13 seconds to go, 13 laps to go, I'll try that again. A delta of 13 seconds, there we go. And just over 10 minutes in this race remaining. It is certainly doable, but it will be a challenge for Colin Knief. Although I said this last time, and a small hiccup for Will Harper saw Colin Knief breezing past and taking the victory. He may have his work out for him. He wants to take the victory in this race. As Matt Daly, who we've not seen much of in this race so far, has delivered a stellar drive in the lead so far and has built quite the advantage. It will take some doing to beat at this stage, but we will watch that as the race progresses towards the final stages. And those battles that we were enjoying just a second ago seem to have dispersed somewhat, obviously, with those small issues. John Baker wringing the neck of this car, it must be said. The car looking very twitchy on corner entry there, trying to take as much pace through the corners as possible and really find the limits of these GTA 1750s. But that is what we like to see. Very action-packed racing, exciting, dynamic cars, the GTA 1750s. Steve Knight is trying to get close to Jack Hodson in front of him, about 6 tenths of a second separating these drivers as we head through Sector 1 now. Actually, is this Sector 1? I'll double check that though. We do have a separate timing graph that will tell me. And yes, we are heading into Sector 2 now with these drivers heading into St Mary's Corner. Steve Knight getting ever closer. A little bit of a twitch off the back end for John Baker. We saw John Baker, that's Jack Hodson rather, they have quite a similar livery. But Jack Hodson, yeah, absolutely wringing the neck in, now feeling the pressure from Steve Knight behind him, trying to carry as much pace as he dares, as it looks like Steve Knight's going to have his work out for him there as we head through St Mary's Corner. Back end of the car, leaning as the car jumps up onto three wheels very briefly there for Jack Hodson, and there's still only 6 tenths of a second separating these drivers as we head down towards the Woodcote Corner now, and that is behind, that is Matt Daly by the looks of things. That is Matt Daly indeed, it is, who is getting ready to lap these very pacey cars ahead of him. So it just goes to show the immense amount of pace that Matt Daly currently has. The fuel load now starting to get lighter. He's just set a purple Sector 1, so this lap looking to be fairly competitive for Matt Daly, hoping to break away from John Cole and Colin Knief behind him there. Colin Knief trying to catch up to John Cole, but he looks like he's struggling to do that at this time. Just got under 10 minutes of this race to go now, and he's going to have his work out for him. He wants to catch up to John Cole ahead, but it is the battle between Steve Knight and Jack Hodson that we are watching now. Only 2 tenths of a second separating these two as we head into turn 1. Steve Knight opting for the outside line there by the looks of things. Yeah, he's going to try and make the move done on the outside. Jack Hodson, in his efforts to defend, has lost a little bit of speed on exit by the looks of things, and it is Steve Knight able to waltz past the Matt Daly, also wanting to unlap himself. That could rather ruin Jack Hodson's charge back towards Steve Knight if he has to let the lapped car of or the lapping car of Matt Daly through, rather, as Steve Knight rides over the curbs, gets the car up into the air ever so slightly. These cars obviously not carrying any downforce really at all. They are quite prone to jumping up into the air, as we see Matt Daly wanting an opportunity past Steve Knight now. But I imagine Steve Knight doesn't really want to give Matt Daly one, because doing that will possibly hand a little bit of pace back to Jack Hodson. It looks like that might have happened actually, going quite wide there, maybe braking a little bit too late in order to let Matt Daly take the inside line, has allowed Jack Hodson to be right up there once again with Steve Knight. Jack Hodson carrying so much more pace now as we head down towards the Woodcote Corner. They are side by side. Who's going to be braver under braking? Let's find out. It is Jack Hodson, who actually gets moved on before the corner. Very nice move there, capitalising on his extra pace in the straight line from the exit of the Levant section, able to get moved on before heading into Woodcote, sealing it with Woodcote and heading through the chicane there ahead of Steve Knight now, with a nice delta between them for his troubles. Further up the order then we have Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton's been running very nicely, stark contrast to race 1 for Mike there, about 1.5 seconds clear of Rob Whitney. Rob Whitney also a bit of an unsung hero in race 2, took home a decent haul of points in race 1 and is looking to do the same in race 2, as well as we head through the final part of the circuit now down towards Woodcote with these two drivers. It looks like Rob Whitney trying to gain onto Mike Hilton, but he may struggle with that because it is about 1.8 seconds now. That gap building ever so slightly as we head towards the final part of the race. The tyres starting to struggle just a little bit, but the fuel oil's getting in lighter as well to help with that. Certainly an action-packed race 2 as well as race 1. A different type of action. Obviously race 1 for the carnage, the chaos, the drama, whereas race 2 has just been excellent in terms of seeing how drivers carve their way through the field, and the order changes as each lap progresses. But it is Colin Keefe has found about 2 seconds from Matt Daly there. Only about 9 seconds separating him and John Cole there. Will that be enough? I'm not entirely sure if it will be. We've got just over 5 minutes in this race remaining. But special mention does have to go to Matt Daly, who hasn't seen much of in this race. Currently on for another personal best lap by the looks of things. A purple Sector 2. Sector 2 making a fairly substantial difference in this, or where you can make a fairly substantial difference, and it is a personal best for Matt Daly. That is a very impressive lap, a 1:23.9. That is one of the best that we've seen all weekend. Might in fact be the best that we've seen this weekend. I don't recollect seeing any cars getting into the 1:23s in qualifying, so as Matt Daly getting more and more comfortable with this car, the lap time's still flying down. It was a purple Sector 3 as well for Matt Daly there, as we have a nice, somewhat of a battle forming between John Baker, Andrew Harby and Will Inglis. What we saw just a few laps ago, there's a few seconds between them still, but it may develop as we enter the final few laps of this race. These drivers obviously enjoying competing with each other in this race, as it is still Jack Hodson and Steve Knight battling it out. Steve Knight hasn't let up from Jack Hodson as we head down towards Woodcote now with these two cars. He certainly, oh no, it's not towards Woodcote, my apologies, it is now we are heading towards through Levant, and unfortunately for Jack Hodson, he's gone a little bit wide there, tried to carry too much speed, jumps onto the grass, finds himself being overtaken by Steve Knight, so he's going to have to work for P11 once again in this race, as it looks like Andrew Whitehead's had a little bit of difficulties according to the timing system. It is not a race to remember for Andrew Whitehead, unfortunately. We've seen he can be a very fast driver, but this race, or this car and track combination, isn't quite working out for him, unfortunately. As we will join once again the action between Steve Knight and Jack Hodson. Jack Hodson not quite as close to Steve Knight as he would want to be, and this is not going to help his cause at all. A little bit of a snap of oversteer from the car there, the car not really respecting what the driver wanted and chucking him into a wall, luckily able to carry on with a little bit of damage there. The rear end of the car in particular struggling by the looks of things, but rather ending his charge towards Steve Knight, and that actually now allows Paul Millman to have Jack in his sight. He may be thinking of a move in just a second. We've got just under 5 minutes of this race to go now, so he can get a move done within that time if he's brave enough, if he's able to decrease that gap, and it looks like he has done through turn 1. A lot more speed on the exit for Paul Millman as we head into Ford Water there. It looks to be that the move was about to be sealed, but Paul Millman tried to push the car a bit too early by the looks of things. Wasn't expecting Jack Hodson to be there. Luckily, no drivers being spun out, both able to carry on. We head into St Mary's corner there. Yeah, Jack Hodson's car, even just saw in the foreground there, not looking particularly enjoyable to drive at this point in time, heading through St Mary's there, as we saw a wheel cocking up on Paul Millman's car rather. It's actually a bit of a battle forming between Will Inglis and Andrew Harby. I mentioned it might happen, and it seems to have happened now. With just a few laps to go in this race, Andrew Harby will start the next lap in the lead, but for how long? Let's see what happens as this battle continues on. It looks like it was ready. It looks like it was on for a couple of points in this race, but it wasn't to be, unfortunately, and this now might be the last chance that these drivers have in this race, on this track, in this car for this year actually, to battle it out. So let's see what they do. They are now side by side, as it looks like Will Inglis was looking at a move up the inside potentially, but was too far back, thought better of it, and good on him for that. I believe that was the right decision. But into Ford Water was once again somewhat blindsided a little bit by Andrew Harvey's predecessor. Thought about a move, wasn't going to stick unfortunately, and is going to try the same thing again in heading into St Mary's corner potentially. He puts the car down the inside, puts a nose up on the inside, and gets the move done this time. Very nice move from Will Inglis, very brave there to take P9 away from Andrew Harvey as we head down towards the Levant corner now. And it is Matt Daly that you can see in the lead of this race then, just directly ahead of them, but Will Inglis with a beautiful move through St Mary's corner, arguably one of the trickiest parts of this circuit, able to get that move done then and up into P9. as we join John Baker. John Baker obviously having those battles with cars earlier on, now running P8, still leading the AM race for the moment, doing a very nice job of it as well. He should be fairly happy with his performance this weekend, and it should be a very nice sign for what is to come in the future rounds. Although unfortunately it goes a little bit wrong for him there. Commentator's curse on the exit of the chicane, jumps onto the gravel, able to carry on though. Shouldn't affect his race too much at this point in time, as we see Steve Knight, currently in second in terms of the AM race, once again executing quite a nice race here up into P11, ahead of Jack Hudson. Jack Hudson obviously struggling towards the end of this race now down into P13, which is unfortunate. He has delivered an excellent race so far. Someone else who's delivered an excellent race so far is also in shot. It is Colin Keneath. Colin Keneath, as he heads round for another circuit here at Goodwood, he is getting ready to start the next lap. Only about 3 seconds behind John Cole. John Cole has had a quiet race so far, but now maybe starting to feel the pressure, because within that 2-second gap that he's got, he should be fairly comfortable, but one tiny error will see Colin Keneath storming past at this stage, and this will be the penultimate lap of the race now. We will join the action with Matt Daly in just a second as he heads across the finish line in what should be a fairly dominant victory, a fairly comfortable, fairly secure victory. He's had a nice go around here at race 2, but it is Colin Keneath who will have put in a very and equally impressive performance, shall we say. Only about 3.2 seconds behind John Cole. He's going to have his work out and be able to cut that down now. I don't think he will be able to, but don't count him out yet. Let's see what happens as we enter the final couple of laps of this race now. We will go on board with Matt Daly. Matt Daly, as he gets ready to head round the chicane and gets ready to start the final lap of this race for the final time here at Goodwood in these cars for this evening. It is Matt Daly who leads the final lap of this race as we get ready to head into turn 1 now, heading into Madgwick. I just want to see what pace he can do actually, because he's been looking mighty pacey. Previous lap of 124.6 as he heads through Madgwick there, using as much of the track as possible. His best lap being that 123, of course. Absolutely flying around at the moment is Matt Daly. As we head through Ford Water now, looking very composed is his car, and get ready to head into St Mary's now as well. The car leaning, kicking up into the edge a little bit as he rides over the curb. He's certainly found a way around the track that works for him, because he's absolutely flying, jumps onto the grass a little bit, trying to push the car a little bit too much perhaps, but that doesn't matter. He's gone purple sector 1 as Colin Keneath gets past John Cole. I mentioned a little bit of an error might have caused that, and it has. John Cole goes off the track. I can't quite work out where that is. Unfortunately, that is right at the edge of Madgwick Corner there. He DNFs, I imagine, in frustration for John Cole there. All coming to an end. That race, unfortunately, he could have taken a podium away from it, but doesn't. Unfortunately, that promotes Alan Matthews up onto the podium. Colin Keneath now up into second position. That rather turns on its head, hasn't it? Right at the very last stage, but it is going to be Matt Daly who we watch as he heads through Woodcote now for the final time this evening, heading down towards the chicane now. With little to no competition once he'd navigated the first couple of laps. A very well executed race, must be said. A little bit of twitch of oversteer for Matt Daly as he comes around and across the line for the final time. It is Matt Daly who takes the race 2 victory here at Goodwood in the GTA 1750. A commendable effort for him there. And speaking of commendable efforts, Colin Keneath finding himself in P2, capitalising on the errors or the misfortunes rather of John Cole there. Now up into P2, Colin Keneath 30 seconds behind Matt Daly. Matt Daly putting in a dominant performance, but Colin Keneath claws his way back from all the way back down at the bottom of the grid pretty much, and having an error here at chicane, now finds himself up in P2 and crosses the line to take the second spot on the podium. And we have a little bit of a wait now for Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews heading through the Woodcote corner now. A little bit of an error for Rosie Hodson there as she has to dive off the track and comes across the line now. Alan Matthews riding over the curb and onto the start-finish straight for the final time this evening, crossing the line in P3, rounding out the podium. Well, that was a very exciting race, and I wasn't expecting that twist at the end. Let's see, does Matt Daly deliver with some victory donors? We can usually expect it from Matt Daly, so I presume we'll be seeing it at some point. But Mike Hilton as well, having a very nice race indeed, as does Rob Whitney, coming home P4 and P5 respectively. Barry Clayton in the end takes home P6, not the podium that he was fighting for at one point, but still a decent haul of points. John Cole currently running P7, but obviously I'm not sure where he's going to end up at the end of this race. John Baker then will be prospective P7 basically as he comes around the corner for the final time here, and should be fairly happy with another AM race victory. But you can see in the foreground there, that is Matt Daly with some victory donuts here at Woodcote. which is great to see. The car roaring as he does so. Brilliantly sounding car, brilliant looking car, and but arguably not a brilliantly driving car according to some of the drivers here this evening. But they are a challenge, and they are fun to watch nonetheless, as Colin Knief, who finally gets the overtake done on Matt Daly. Unfortunately, it wasn't within the race, but overtakes Matt Daly nonetheless as he returns to the pits now. Matt Daly taking an interesting line on the exit there, but that will round out the night running then. Steve Knight comes home P7, Paul Milman P8, myself P9 apparently. That has just gone a little bit messed up, unfortunately, owing to a few drivers leaving the session as the session has come to a close. But I hope you very much enjoyed the first running for the GTA Championship this year. We say goodbye to the GTA 1750 and Goodwood for now, getting ready to go head into the Giulia for the next round. I believe we'll have to double check that, but I do believe it is the Giulia. But yes, an exciting couple of races which bode well for the upcoming rounds. So from me in the commentary box, I will see you in 2 weeks for the GTA Championship, and I'll see you next week for the next round of the Formula Alpha Championship. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this evening as I have, and I will see you then.